Lean Sigma awareness. By the end of this training, our aim is for you to understand the basic principles of Lean Sigma, understand that there may be different ways of doing things, see how some of the basic principles could be applied in your workplace, and have demonstrated the ability to apply these techniques in practice. Okay, first of all, the history of Lean. Now, some people may think that Lean started with Toyota, but actually it started much earlier than that. Even before Henry Ford. Henry Ford was a great pioneer of assembly lines, floor lines, and of some of the manufacturing strategy that you see today. But even before Henry Ford, you had people like Taylor and Gilbreth and Eli Whitney producing interchangeable parts in his weapons manufacture as far back as the 1850s. Now, during the Second World War, Japan actually took a lot of bombings from the US, and that impacted on their manufacturing capability to the degree that after the Second World War the manufacturing capability was pretty much in ruins, and people like Edward W. Deming and Juran went over to Japan to help them out and went into Toyota, and Toyota took those basic principles and began to apply them to their manufacturing methodology, because unlike the Henry Fords with the mass production, Toyota realised that what they had to do was come up with improvement methodologies that actually fit their market. So it was of no use to say, well, you can have any colour you want as long as it's black, in the words of Henry Ford. It had to be based on customer preferences. So Toyota continued in this vein for 40-50 years until the book was written, The Machine That Changed the World. Now, that first coined the phrase lean manufacturing back in the 90s, and from there the Toyota production system methodology gained its fame, and Toyota are seen to be the world leaders in this because they're probably the best at it, and that's pretty much where sort of lean comes from. Now, when we say lean manufacturing, lean service, what is that? Lean works in any repeatable process. It is fundamentally a different way of managing and developing processes. It was originally based upon Japanese manufacturing methodologies, and it's about doing the most with the least consistently to a set quality level. Now, the danger in some arenas is people just see the first part of that sentence, doing the most with the least, but it has to be done to that set quality level. You have to have the standards in there, and you have to have the quality, the delivery to the customer, as well as the cost reductions. As I said, the world leader is seen to be Toyota, but other people using lean are the likes of McDonald's, Dell, General Motors, Ford, British Telecom, General Electric, Western Union, Orange, Tesco, Halifax Bank of Scotland, ICI, Revlon. Many companies use lean in the manufacturing processes and in the back office and front office processes, as well as Six Sigma. So it isn't just limited to lean. So what lean isn't? Lean isn't about getting your colleagues to work faster and faster and harder. It's not about blindly implementing a set of improvement tools. And it isn't only of value in high volume processes. You can get great benefits from implementing lean or Lean Sigma in processes that are quite complex and quite bespoke. It isn't just about having a tidy up. Some people confuse one of the lean tools, 5S, with just having a tidy workplace, when there are actually some companies out there whose whole production system is based around the 5S methodology. And it also isn't incompatible with other improvement methodologies, for example, Six Sigma. So when we talk about lean, we often talk about value-adding activity and non-value-adding activity. And what lean's aim is to reduce the amount of non-value-adding activity that we carry out during any given working day and replace it with more of the value-adding activity, i.e. the activity that the customer is willing to pay for. So, history of Six Sigma. Where did Six Sigma start and who else uses it? Well, it started in Motorola in 1987. They were the first ones to coin the phrase Six Sigma. Then following suit, Texas Instruments, ABB, Allied Signal and General Electric. And it is about on target with minimum process variation. So the Six Sigma manufacturing philosophy, as we said, came from Motorola. They recognised that sufficient process improvement wouldn't occur using a conventional approach to quality. It was developed to help them reduce variation within a process by focusing effort on improving inputs to a process rather than reacting to the outputs. Therefore, standardised inputs equals standardised outputs. In the old American saying, garbage in, garbage out. So if you get your inputs right, your outputs have to be right. So the process was failing customer expectations. Traditionally, processes aim for process capability of 3 to 4 sigma. That's 93 to 99.3% acceptable, or right first time quality. Therefore, the customer receives 6,200 defective products per million at best. Processes now aim for 6 sigma. That then delivers only 3.4 defective products per million to the customer. When we talk about variation and variability, variation exists in everything. Even the best machine cannot make every unit exactly the same every time. Improved capability becomes a necessity due to the need of improved designs, lower costs, better performance, particularly of your competitors. All of this leads to the need for tighter tolerances. This means the ability to operate a tight tolerance without producing defects becomes a major competitive advantage. Some of the goals of Six Sigma would be improved customer satisfaction, the reduction of defects, the reduction of variation, better yield improvement, higher operating income, improved process capability, targeting of Six Sigma standards, consistent and constant measurement of the process, staying ahead of the competition, and following on from that, breakthrough improvements. Six Sigma objectives are directly and quantifiably connected to the objectives of the business. So what do the Sigma values represent? Here they are, ignoring the 1.5 shift in Sigma that I think it was Motorola brought in following their initial forays into the Six Sigma field. So your Six Sigma yield would be equivalent to 99.99966%, or that would give you 3.4 defects per million opportunities. That's what your DPMO stands for. 5 Sigma, 233 defects per million. 4 Sigma, 6,210 defects per million opportunities, and so on and so forth. So when we look at Lean versus Six Sigma, so Lean tends to focus more on waste reduction. So looking at value in the eyes of the customer, eliminating waste, simplifying or reducing complexity, the demand, the flow, engagement of stakeholders, and a continuously improving organisation. Six Sigma, however, would focus primarily on variation reduction, using the Pareto principle, variation reduction methodologies, the elimination of scrap and rework, process controls. Again, looking to continuously improve those processes in terms of reducing the variation, and stabilize the processes. So in effect, if you simplify it right down to its component parts, Lean would focus on your speed and reduction of waste. Six Sigma focuses more on the accuracy. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, can we afford one without the other? Lean Sigma, we talk about harvesting the fruit of statistical thinking and lean system philosophy. Now, you've got your grown fruit, which would be your fundamentals of lean, and we're talking about basic management principles there. Your low-hanging fruit would be some of your more basic lean tools, looking at Kaizen, 5S, standard operating procedures, failure modes and effects analysis. The bulk of the fruit, process characterization and optimization, and then your sweet fruit. However, the most difficult to get at would be obtained by looking at design for manufacturability. So why would we bother with Lean Six Sigma? Well, firstly, to retain and attract new customers. So if you compete purely on price, you will keep your customers for a limited period of time. If you compete on price and quality, you will keep your customers, or 95% of your customers, for good, and you will beat your rivals. Building those foundations will ensure that any improvement activities that you put in place will stick. So we're going to go into now an overview of some of the basic tools. We're going to look at standardization and FMEA, or failure modes and effects analysis. We're going to look at waste, the reduction of waste, the 7 wastes of lean. We're going to look at how you measure in terms of QCD, quality, cost and delivery. We're going to look at 5S, workplace organisation, capacity and demand planning, and races. So first of all, we'll look at standard processes. So what would happen if you sat 10 staff from different teams together who undertake the same task and asked them how they completed their processes? Well, you'd probably get 8 or 9 different opinions or versions. On a recent example of this that I carried out, I got 10 different versions. The following aren't uncommon. There's no sharing of best practice, new staff sit in Nellie's team and learn bad habits, out-of-date operating instructions or no operating instructions at all, informal process descriptions being generated by staff, or the little black book approach. There's no ownership because of external interventions in the process. So, the route map to get to standardization of your processes, or a one best way of carrying out a process. First of all, you carry out process user group and document your one best way or your standard process. Then you'd have to gain approval for that, carry out a failure modes and effects analysis, identify your critical control points, highlight these on your standard processes. From there you could produce user guides based on those critical processes, build those critical processes into quality assurance system, again with the necessary sign-off, identify the mitigation for the CCPs from your FMEA and build that into an ongoing plan, and identify any improvements from that, which you would then feed back into another process user group and go through the whole process again. It's a continuously improving cycle. So when I talk about FMEA, so we're talking about failure modes and effects analysis, this helps to pinpoint where we need to pay special attention. So we'll look at the failure mode, or what could go wrong, and the effect of that. What would that effect be? How severe would it be? how likely is it to occur, and how likely is it to be detected. Scoring those three things will give us a risk priority number. The higher the number, the more urgent it is to do something about that. So the Lean Sigma solution, the standardisation of processes, process and systems across teams and centres is vital if performance is to be improved, both in terms of service quality and efficiency, as well as morale. So it's not simply a quick fix, but over time it will lead to sustained operational improvements. If you apply the best process, your team will achieve the best results. You operate to one best way to get the best result, and measure the process and not just the result. Standard processes are the foundation stone of any improvement activity. Teacher Ono once said, "Without standards there can be no improvement," and never a truer word has been spoken. Standard processes lead to and enable your training standards, your quality standards, work timings, one best setup, skills management, quality assurance, the ability to carry out effective performance management, measure your workflow, carry out efficient and effective resource planning, which all in turn enable continuous improvement. So if you're tempted to skip this stage and just go straight into Kaizen events or the continuous improvement, I would strongly advise against it. Get your standard processes in place first. They are your foundation stone. So what I'd like you to do now is just pause this video for 5 minutes and just think about how could the introduction of standardized processes benefit your current operation. The next section we're going to look at is waste. So what is waste? Well, the Japanese word for waste is muda. It's anything that doesn't add value to the customer. Identifying and removing waste will improve our value stream and help create flow and pull in our processes. So how does it work? Well, to help us manage waste, we break it into two types. Type 1, waste we can identify but cannot easily remove. This will include geographical, IT and legislative constraints. Now type 2 is the waste that we can eliminate right now. To help identify waste, we have the acronym TIMWOOD. We use this when the focus is on improving operational efficiency. Now if you want an easy way to remember which type of waste is type 1 and which is type 2, it's waste type 1 can't be done, waste type 2 you can do. So TIMWOOD, the 7 forms of process waste. So type 1, overproduction. This is to produce sooner, faster or in greater quantities than customer demand. Now if we do that, if we overproduce, that will then lead to type 2 waste, which is inventory. This is raw material, work in progress or finished goods which is not having value added to it. The third waste is waiting. So that's people or parts that wait for a work cycle to be completed. The fourth of the 7 wastes is motion. It's unnecessary movement of people, parts or machines within a process. Fifth waste, transportation. Unnecessary movement of people or parts between processes. And the 6th waste, defects. That's non-right first time or repetition or correction of a process. And as you can imagine, this is where some of the Six Sigma methodology lends itself very, very well to the elimination of defects and one of the wastes. 7th waste, overprocessing. That's processing beyond the standard required by the customer. Now there is an eighth waste, which is the underutilisation of our people. Now it's said that our people are our biggest asset, and there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of intelligence and know-how locked up in the minds of your people. And by not utilising that fully, and by not getting the answers from the people who are the experts, the people who do the job, that's considered to be another one of the waste. And always remember, eliminating waste is one of the quickest, easiest and cheapest ways of improving a process. So 7 waste again: using tin wood, transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing and defects. Another 7 forms of waste are the 7 forms of service waste. Now these, we use the acronym MICRO. These are motion, incorrect inventory, unclear communication, repetition, opportunities lost, waiting and errors. So once again, just pause this video for 5 minutes or so and have a think if you can think of any waste in your current work process. Next section, metrics and visual management, in addition to QCD. That's quality, cost and delivery. So what is visual management? Well, visual management is a tool used to visually convey the current status of an area compared to plan, visually highlighting an abnormality as it occurs. To be effective, visual management should be highly visible within the team environment and be meaningful to the team, not just to the upper management. All staff should have an understanding of what the objectives, goals mean and be able to relate their individual performance to them. With visual management, always beware of wallpaper. So wallpaper are the things that have been up on notice boards for months and years sometimes that no one pays any attention to. It has to be meaningful, it has to be live. Visual management is a living thing. So when we're talking about visual management, we use a balanced scorecard based on QCD, quality, cost and delivery. Each as important as the other. So customer satisfaction needs to improve simultaneously in all 3 of these dimensions. So just have a think what would happen if we don't maintain a balance. So if your organisation focuses solely on cost, you could suffer on delivery and on quality. Ultimately, that is going to cost you reputation and customers. If you focus too much on quality, you could be producing things at a higher cost that no one will be prepared to pay for, and again that could impact the delivery times. If you just focus on getting things out of the door in terms of delivery as fast as possible, again your quality could suffer, your cost will suffer because of the amount of rework and defects that you produce. So it's essential to get that balance across quality, cost and delivery. So when we talk about quality, most people would think that 99.9% right first time quality is acceptable, but always be mindful that you cannot always rely upon percentages. So 99.9% right first time quality would mean 30,000 letters lost every day by the Royal Mail, 5,000 unnecessary hospital operations every year in England, 5,000 cheques processed to wrong accounts every hour by the clearing banks, and 5 plane crashes every day in the UK alone, and also an hour without electricity every month. So why would we use QCD boards? It's so that teams have a focal point and the impact of changes are clear. Motivation is achieved by highlighting successes influenced by team actions. It also breeds familiarity with the standard layout. It eases movement of people and enables managers to receive fast performance updates on the hoof. It reduces the need to have other information elsewhere, i.e. on computers or additional wallpaper on other boards around the place. Everyone can quickly see how we're doing and what action is underway to improve. So, are we having a good day? Are we having a bad day? Are we on track? Are we in front? Are we behind? Boards should be consolidated and information should flow both ways. So a board for the team, QCD board for the team, showing daily workflow, quality, cost and delivery. That should then consolidate up to an area board or department board, right through to a site board if you like. And that can be in manufacturing or in service environments. They are just as effective in both. So again, a little exercise here for you. A member of your team isn't reaching their personal target. What would you do? And just pause the video for 5 minutes, have a think about that. Next section, 5S, workplace organisation. So what is 5S? 5S is a systematic approach to workplace organisation, encouraging ownership to sustain and further develop the working environment. The aims of 5S are to remove waste from the workplace, improve safety and provide an environment where continuous improvement is embraced. So the 5S's originally came from Japanese, from Toyota, and stood for Seiri, Seiton, Seiso, Seiketsu and Shitsuki. They roughly translate to sort, set in order, shine, standardise and sustain. So we're going to do a little exercise now entitled The Numbers Workplace. So here's an example of a workplace that, imagine you've gone to work in. Now what I'd like you to do is, when that comes up again, you're to try to imagine you're putting a line through the numbers from 1 to 49. You're trying to spot them in sequence and to the visual standard. So begin. Time yourself, take 30 seconds to try and find the numbers 1 to 49 in sequence. See how many you get in 30 seconds. Okay, how many did you find? The usual number people get up to when they're doing this as a paper exercise is round about 3, 4 or 5. So what was the problem there? There was confusion. There were numbers in there that we didn't need. We didn't know where to look. So we were only asked to find numbers 1 to 49, but there were numbers there up to the high 80s. So what we're going to do is take away all the numbers that we don't need. So we're completing the first of the 5S's. We're carrying out the sort. So we're just ensuring we keep the numbers 1 to 49. So that should make it a little easier. So here's a new workplace. Again, take 30 seconds. Now see how many of the numbers 1 to 49 in sequence you can find in 30 seconds. Okay, how many did you get? Again, this time, normally people get up to 12, 13, 14 once you've taken some of the other numbers away that we don't need. But did anyone see a pattern in there? Well, that's what the pattern looks like. Can you see that pattern? Okay, what about if I put a grid round it? So number 1 is in this box here. Number 2 is in this box. Number 3 is in this box. 4 is in this box. 5 is in this one. 6 is in this one. 7, 8, 9, and then back over here for 10, 11, 12, so on and so forth. So what I'd like you to do once more, take 30 seconds and now see how many numbers you can get up to between 1 and 49 in sequence in 30 seconds. Okay, that time you should have got much more. But imagine if the numbers were placed in sequence like this. Now how many can you find in 30 seconds? Of course, you can find them all because you've got some order in place, you've standardised the layout, you've ensured that everything's where it needs to be. So, you know, we've carried out the first two of the S's, we've sorted and we've set in order, and we've put some standardisation in place. So this time what I'd like to do is see if you can spot the two missing numbers. We've taken two numbers away. Did you spot the numbers 18 and 41? Okay, if you didn't, or if it took you quite a while, the next slide I'm going to put up again will be two missing numbers. You should find these much quicker. Okay, can you spot the two missing numbers here? Of course, 13 and 36. Why? Because we have a standard. It's organised. It's designed to make abnormalities very visual. So this is a combination of some visual management and good 5S, good workplace organisation. It's very quick and easy to see when something isn't where it should be. So the journey we're looking to go on with 5S is going from disorganisation to organisation in order to make for a more efficient, a safer and a better organised workplace. Next section, capacity and demand planning. So does anyone recognise this? You've got busy days, quiet days, missed SLAs, service level agreements, stress, working overtime, cutting corners to get the job done, firefighting, panic borrowing of staff, key staff away on holiday, meetings to decide what to do. It's all symptoms of poor capacity planning. So fundamental of planning, always start with the question, how many staff do I need, rather than how many staff have I got. This avoids the temptation of planning work around whoever is in and any daily diversions. In operations, you need to match resource closely to demand to maximise value to your customers. So you've got too much demand, it's a lost opportunity, and too much resource is waste. So demand and resource should be measured in the same units, either hours or FTE, full-time equivalents, and include the same allowances. In most operations, but not telephony, demand or workload can be calculated by demand equals the number of items times the processing time needed per item. Obviously, if you want to get into calculating FTE required, you have to factor in diversions, holidays, sickness, absence, etc. So put simply, capacity planning is about matching the appropriate resources or people to meet current demand or work that needs processing. An operation therefore needs to understand what the demand is and how it varies over time. So in brief, the objective of capacity planning is to match resource closely to demand. Always use the same units, for example hours. You need a good understanding of the work content. One full-time equivalent on the payroll doesn't equate to one full-time equivalent's worth of work. i.e. you need to factor in productivity. Be aware of the many other factors affecting resource. Beating the SLA is waste. The ideal is to meet it. So predicting demand, you can forecast, guess, or simply hope everything will be okay. So which one are you going to do? Some of the benefits of good capacity planning: it gives you a clear, visible picture of demand and resource. So can you deliver or not? It makes you more able to react to the volumes before they become out of control. Highlights special circumstances. It shows how well rosters match the forecast demand pattern. Provides data for staffing decisions, and staff will understand the reason for special requests of overtime, cancellation of training, etc. Reduces the need for firefighting. Make you more proactive in terms of managing the business rather than having a more reactive approach. It'll improve your scheduling of team hours, including agreement of work, notional, special leave, flexi time and holidays. Also identifies opportunities for short-term borrowing and lending between teams, and helps ensure fair allocation of work across teams. And finally, when we're looking at improvement activities in an area, in a company, something called RACES. Now, it's written as RACES here, but you would always start at the S. So look at what can you simplify. You know, if you can simplify a process because it's just become too complex over time with little bits added to it, that's the quickest way to get some improvement. Then look at eliminating waste. Then can you combine processes or activities that are done on different sites? Then, and only then, look at automation, because there's no point automating a poor process, because you would just end up with a poor automated process. Then look at, can you reduce the amount of processes that you carry out, or can you relocate them to make them more geographically efficient? That's the end of this section. Thank you.